What's up everyone, and welcome to Homebrew Subaru. As you can kind of tell from the thumbnail and the title of this video, I have finally let go of my 1990 Nissan 240SX with an RB20 DET swap. You know, and even though that car wasn't a Subaru, it was the blood, sweat, and tears of this channel. I pumped so much of my time and money into that car. It was something that was pretty much ready to go to the scrapyard, and I turned it into the performance car it should have been. So initially when I first got the 240SX home, I already knew that I was going to swap out that single overhead cam KA engine for something better. It's going to upgrade the brakes and suspension, kind of add some wheels and aero. And that's where I started. I actually started with the brakes and suspension just to make sure I had a good rolling chassis down the road. The KA was still a running engine at the time. It smoked quite a bit and the timing was way out. I couldn't get the timing to adjust properly. And I knew that I was going to upgrade the engine, but I kind of put it off initially. So the priority in the beginning was to actually change out those 4-lug hubs to 5-lug hubs so I could get the bigger brakes on, so I could put some different wheels on. And after I got past that stage, then I really started thinking about engine options. Now my original plan was to get a 5.3 or 6-liter LS engine and made it up with a 350Z 6-speed. I knew that combination was going to be a lot of fun. But as I started pricing through like the mounts and the headers and the bell housing adapter, getting a clutch to work in the car, the price on the LS swap started going up and up and up. I started looking at Nissan JDM swaps. A lot of people were doing RB swaps, and there was a lot of information online for getting an inline 6 RB out of a Skyline to run in your S13 chassis. And of course SR engines out of a 180SX Japanese car. You know, it was a lot more straightforward, but both engines were going to be options. And when I started looking into the pricing of them, the SRs had already started climbing in price. To get an SR engine was a little bit more than getting a full RB20 DET with the 5-speed transmission. So that was going to be the best option for me. And well, I pretty much ran that engine right here on the floor before putting it into the car. I did the full swap myself in this garage, and the car was a lot of fun to drive. It's something I really enjoyed, but I just didn't enjoy it enough. And I guess really what it boils down to is I just didn't want that car anymore. I have 2 other cars to drive. I put so much time and money into that car that I spent more time working on it than I did actually driving it. Now, it was about this time last year that I had been sanding the car, and I just got sick of sanding it, so I parked it outside, left it wrapped up over the winter with full intentions of this spring of pulling it back in, finishing it up, painting the car, and listing it for sale. Now, I'm really not sure if I'd mentioned any of that, but one of my followers had been watching the car for quite some time. He kind of figured out that I was going to paint the car, asked if I would paint it white for him, if he agreed to buy, and we kind of made a deal and made it all happen. So it's a little bit longer intro than I intended, but this is where the video kind of begins, where I first bring in the car, give it an initial look over, and kind of go from there. And here's the car after sitting the entire winter. You can see a couple little spots where some rust has started to try and come back through on the hood, which isn't a big deal. It's just surface stuff. I've got the side skirts off. The rear lights are out. They're being changed back to the OEM lights. I've got a bunch of low spots to deal with. Not quite sure what I'll be doing with those yet. The interior stayed relatively clean over the winter, so not much needs to be done there. Just kind of a quick cleanup and freshen it up. It doesn't smell too bad either. And yeah, like this fender needs a lot of work. The front bumper needs a lot of work. I'm going to be painting these rotas semi-gloss black, and then I've got all the skirts and lip and everything to do. The lip's actually been hanging up all over there all winter long. So I'm getting ready to back the car out because I'm going to be dealing with the wheels and the skirts first. And then once all that stuff's done, I'll pull the car back in and start sanding some more. He also decided that he wanted the wheels changed from the bronze color they were to just a black finish. I just used a Scotch-Brite, the 3M Scotch-Brite pad, scuffed up the wheels a little bit, made sure they were nice and clean, masked them off, gave them a spray of primer, and then chose a more semi-gloss black and went over all the wheels in semi-gloss black with the center caps, and they turned out really nice. I mean, I really like the look of them. Look what I found. Started chipping off some of that body fill. And that's fresh unsanded paint right underneath of it. All of these years. And the rear quarter, found more. It's got that common crushed in corner at the back here. That's gonna be a lot of work. So the trunk lid, it's never really lined up really well. It's always kind of been tight over on this side and a gap over on the other side. But I was charging the battery to bring the car back inside the garage, and the hinge no longer lines up with the pin for whatever reason. So I pulled down a bit of the back of the headliner, loosened up the hinges, and started trying to pull this over and adjust it. But I wasn't really making it go where I want to, and it always wanted to shift back to the right. And as I started looking underneath, I was like, are there bolts missing out of the hinges on the other side? And you can see there's no bolt on that side. And then over on the other side, it's the same way. So now I'm trying to lift this up so I can get some bolts in there, clean up the threads and put some bolts in, and hopefully they tighten up properly so that I can get this adjusted and sitting right. And unfortunately, after I got the hinges off, I realized that both of them are actually broken on one end. With just hanging on with one bolt, obviously the thing's been shifting around and jarring as it opened and closed, and I just hadn't noticed because it always lined up at the latch. So I've got them off. I straightened them both up. I tried to do a repair, and it just, it kind of repaired this side, but there's just a little post sticking out where the other end broke off, and the other end is kind of broken, but it is all together. I'm sure it's going to work because it's been working like that since I've owned it, the last 5 years or whatever. And then when I come back here, I've got the body lines lined up absolutely perfect. It's shifted forward the way it should be, and then the lines on both sides look really good. So I'm going to tighten it all down and make sure it opens and closes, call it good. So I have the car to the point it's sanded all the way down to 60 grit everywhere it kind of needs to. I'm not stripping the whole thing down to metal. It'll just take me forever. This big patched area, I sanded that down a lot. There was a crack running through it, and there was just too much material built up. So I've got a thin skim of body fill on there. Try and sand that down tonight. There was a couple hammer marks down in the roof here, and I took down a lot of the material there and flattened it out. This whole thing was crushed in at some point, and someone did a pretty good job of straightening it out. So you can actually see a couple stitches in here where they had a puller to get the metal to come out straight. And so there is a couple little spots that just weren't very flat, and I just got a thin skim of body fill on those. And this one goes a little deeper. I'll probably have to, right in here, I'm gonna have to put a little bit more. And then the shaved wiper arm, it's pretty flat, but that might need a little bit. This back quarter, this is where the chunk pretty much fell off. I feathered that out really well, really wide. And I just have this patch in here for now. I could already tell it's still gonna need a little bit more put in there, a little bit down there. This side of the car is actually pretty good. Got everything loose off of the car, everything stripped off underneath the skirts. And this fender, it also had a chunk that fell off. When I started sanding it down, like this is bare metal here, and I just realized, well, there's just the tiniest little warp that someone wanted to fill in. So I got that sanded right down to just a little tiny bit of body fill there. And then as for the hood, this is the hood that I got off the other car that I had. I've gotten all of the rust marks out of it. These are actually sanded quite flat, and it's possible you may see some of these little deviations in the paint when it's finished. But really the only one spot that was low was right here. I'm gonna go over everything in like a probably maybe 120, just quick 120 over some of these spots. See where I need to add up some more stuff, and then start trying to get this sanded down to 180. It's a couple days later, and I've made quite a bit of progress with the body fill. The emblem, I asked the buyer if he wanted to shave because it had been shaved before, but there was like at least an 1/8 of an inch of body fill on top of there, and it just kind of split down the center. So I got it right back down to the plastic and sanded out the bit of paint that was in there. I've already filled it, and this is just a light coating over top just to kind of try and get a final sanding on it. This fender, I've gotten it really flattened out. There was a couple little, rough spots and indentations, so that's just kind of the final mix, and hopefully I'll sand this down and it'll look good enough to prime. This little spot, I've raised this twice now. I can kind of still feel a little bit of a low spot in there, but we'll sand it out and see what it looks like when it's flattened. Definitely got a few patches going through here, and a lot of it's the original stuff that I just never put on there myself, but I've had to raise it here a little bit more, and now as I feel it going across, there's still a tiny little bit of a wobble to it, but it is pretty good. This top section, I've got it really flat, and it's got some nice curvature at the top there, and just a couple little bits of spot putty to try and finish that off. I've gotten this really flattened out. Looks good, feels good. And then on the right rear corner, I've really filled in a whole section there. It looks really good from here. The bottom, the same thing. That was another little hole. So it's kind of filled in at this point. I think that's it. I got a little bit up on the hood, and that was already done. And just a little slick of spot putty on there. So we're getting really close to being done the body work anyway. Now I will start this segment by saying I have never sanded something so much in my life. This is the second time I've actually sanded this car down, but this time I went a lot further with it. So I started with 60 grit. I tried to work up to 220. It was just chewing up 220. I was going through a lot of paper, so I decided to go to 120 and then stepped up to 220 and finalized with 320. Turned out pretty good, I think, for what I can do myself. Everything feels pretty flat. There's a little bit of wave here and there. Feel a little wave going through the back here, or actually see it looking down the side of the car, but got all the trim done. The mirrors are done. Hood's all done. Everything is very silky. And I'm really glad to say that I'm finally done sanding. I mean, I'm just absolutely sick of it. And I'm also glad that I wore the same thing every day, because this stuff's going directly into the garbage. There's no way it's going to go into my washing machine. $70 of clothes that's well used is easily replaceable. Washing machine, not so much. So the next stage will be to try and clean up the garage as best I can and get as much of the dust out of here as possible. It's covered absolutely everything. I'll get the car outside and I'll try and blow it off outside, sweep up the floors, and I'll set up some box fans over at the door and use some compressed air to try and blow out as much of the dust as I can. And once I find that it's, reasonable, I'll plan on pulling the car back in and masking it off for primer first. I likely will jack the car up and get the wheels off, just so I can do a little bit of masking up on the inside, because if we're doing white paint, I mean, there's a good chance that overspray is going to get in a couple places. And I'd like to try and make it as presentable as possible anyway. Well, after putting in so many hours sanding the car and cleaning up my garage, and getting the car all masked off, it's finally time to start spraying some primer. The whole entire car is going to get sprayed with primer, and then I'm going to have to come back and mask off the body so that I can paint up the trim. The trim's all going to be black, and the same with the mirrors. The mirrors were painted at some point, so I had to clean those up and gonna have to get them painted again. And all that's going to be like a semi-gloss black. After that's done, and that paint sets, come back, mask off those areas, and come back and do the entire body. I have all of the supplies I need to finish. I'm going to start with the degreaser on all the body panels, make sure everything's nice and clean. And then I'm going to move on to this self-etching primer, make sure it adheres to all this bare metal really well. And from what I've read, you can actually sand this and build up on top of it. So it's kind of an in-between. It won't lift or wrinkle the paint from what I've read. So really good product. And then if I need to build it up, I just have the regular 3-in-1 primer, the stuff that I was using earlier on all the skirts. I've actually got some particulate filters for my mask. So even though it's been about half an hour, the fumes are really thick in here, so I'm going to try and do this quickly. The primer, it doesn't look like it has great coverage, like it hasn't blended everything, but it's amazing primer. When spraying it, it's very thin. It almost goes on like water. So you got to be really careful of how much you're putting on. But the coverage is absolutely amazing. It's almost like a glue. That's what I would kind of describe it as. But just touching some of these portions in here, like the finish feels amazing. It really does. So I think I'm actually going to leave it like this because I have such good coverage everywhere. But I'm going to go over some of the trim again because I can see little cracks and crevices, maybe around the mirrors and the door lines. I want to do around the handles again. And then I'll let this sit overnight. Yeah, it looks like it's really well covered. And then I can just come back to it tomorrow and hopefully start masking off for doing that trim and painting it all black. Well, I'm certainly not going to lie, but after getting off all of the masking I'm a little bit more disappointed than I was originally. Paint throughout shows sanding lines and swirls throughout the whole thing. So, I mean, the car's painted, it's covered. It's definitely, the body's rust free. And what I would recommend at this point, or if I was planning on keeping the car, I would honestly think about having the whole entire car wrapped. I mean, it's all his decision, whatever he decides to do moving forward in the future. At least I got the car back to this point. So as far as we discussed last night, he may be picking up the car tonight, which means I basically have to get it off the jack stands with the wheels on, get all the lights into it, do a quick little general cleanup, and kind of gather up any of the other items that are actually going to go with the car. So I'll get all that stuff kind of done and figured out, back the car out, and we'll take another look at it outside. And there it is, all back together. I'm 100% finished with it. I've just kind of got to dig up some of the extra parts that I have and box them up so that they're ready to go with the car. I had to do a little rewire on the taillights. I haven't actually gone through them, and I know there's going to be an issue with signals because there is no resistors for the LEDs, and really with the rewiring that's been done, incandescent bulbs should be going back into those tails, but you'll have to make that decision and choice. The paint on this side's a little thinner, I can tell in some spots. And that run, there's a run on the trunk lid, but you know, from 10 feet away, not even, the car's gonna catch a lot of eyes, and especially with that RB screaming down the road, it's gonna turn a lot of heads. Just a quick look at the interior. Got it reasonably cleaned up. Yes, it still has the STI seats in it, but the dash is no cracks in the dash. I kept it in really good shape over the years. I've got the actual fitted floor mats in there. Replaced a lot of the interior that was actually missing in the car. The rear seats all cleaned. Got the rear hatch cover all in place. Glass is all cleaned up. She's good to go. Oh yeah, door jambs were not done. And well, that's it. The car is gone. It's with its new owner. He's really enjoying it. He's been posting clips up on Instagram. And I'm really happy, and it satisfies me that it went to another enthusiast as opposed to someone that just got a bunch of money to drive this car into a street pole, if you know what I mean. You know, having spent that much time and effort on the car, I'd kind of like to see it last a little longer. But whatever happens, it's out of my hands. I can't control the world. It's just one of those things. So I am finally down to Subarus again. I kind of run it through my mind, like if I had spent all the time and money that I did on the Nissan on my Subarus, how much further along I would actually be. But we all kind of learn from our mistakes, and I'm not calling the Nissan a major mistake. It was a great learning experience. I had never done such an engine swap before, and so much, sanding and painting on a car. But it really taught me a lot about, where I want to go heading into the future. And I just kind of gonna settle with what I have and maintain it, keep on the little upgrades here and there, and I think that's what's gonna keep me really happy. Especially the Forester. For how little money I've put into that thing, for how reliable it's been for me, to the adventures it takes me on, the thing is a complete hero. So yeah, I know this video's gone on crazy long, and thank you very much if you lasted this long. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time.